Welcome everyone to another episode of Podium Stories. Today I have a very special guest in the building. I'm going to introduce her first, and then we'll let her introduce her much better than I could. Today we have Shaina Weisinger, is the founder and CEO of Repurpose House, which turns long-form content into optimized videos and images for high engagement social media strategies. She has thought about content in many publications, including DigitalMarketer, Startup Nation, and I think she continuously offers valuable takeaways by interviewing experts from well-recognized brands such as Godaddy, HubSpot, MarketingProfs, through her video podcast, The Content Coalition. Her and I spoke, I believe, a couple of weeks ago because we have a lot of things in common of our businesses. And I'm so happy to have you here, Shaina.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here too. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start asking you by really quickly how Repurpose House came to be. I know you have a background in video producing. So in the short version of 60 seconds, how it all come together into Repurpose House? I know it's a hard question to start.
Oh, 60 seconds because it was quite the journey.
Sticking that way.
Okay, perfect. Clock, go. So yes, my background is video production for digital marketing. I went to school for film. I started a video production company that was doing all sorts of video for strategic marketing strategies, if that's a thing. And one of the things that we were doing were video podcasts. So it was a really great way to do like long form content that was a give content. And as I tried to pitch that consistently to other prominent audio podcasters, a part of that package was creating these repurposed assets like audiograms or video memes with the captions on them sized properly. And literally everybody I talked to kept saying, we don't care about the video side of the whole deal, but if you just did those small assets, we would throw our money at you. And I was shocked because I was like, nobody's doing this already. And lo and behold, nobody was doing it already. There were places that you could go and do it yourself. There's great platforms for that. And then there were other like agencies who were doing it as a part of like a bigger value, like $2,000 a month thing. But there was really no company that was just doing that one thing and delivering the assets for you. So that's kind of it's the very short version of it. But yes, that's kind of how Repurpose House started.
So it's interesting to me to hear the story about the traffic and conversion event and how that was like a turning point for you as a company. So if you could give us like a brief overview on what happened, what that meant to you as a company and as a founder.
Yeah, for sure. Well, initially we were called Podcast Meme. So we were just talking to podcasters. And then we rebranded and kind of changed our offering in November to be Repurpose House for like all marketers. And I knew that the best place to test what we were doing and to see if it would catch would be the Traffic and Conversion Summit. It's the biggest marketing event you can go to in the US, really. And so I bit the bullet and I bought a booth, which was super expensive, about 10 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I was in my head, I was like, here's the deal. If it's going to do well, it will take off there, right? Like we'll get word of mouth, we'll sign on the accounts, it'll pay for itself. If it's not going to do well, it's a 10 grand investment to know not to spend more time on this business. Sense. For me, it was worth it either way because it was worth 10 grand to be done and spend my time doing something new and different. But we got there and the reaction was crazy. Like people were super excited about it. I think I ended up like in tears at one point. I was like, oh my gosh, it's working. Right. But then what was so cool about it was after the event, a bunch of really prominent people in the marketing community were on Facebook. And like, I kept seeing dings on my phone while I was at the airport and people were mentioning me. And I'm like, why are these like really big names mentioning me? And it was because they had seen the booth. They were talking, people were asking about repurposing content. And so like my name was getting thrown around. And then all of a sudden I get a DM from Roland Frazier, who's one of the founders of DigitalMarketer, one of the owners of DigitalMarketer and Traffic and Conversion Summit. And from there, they became clients and it just kind of spun out. But it was pretty amazing because for me, it was worth it to test the market and see if it was something to keep on investing time and money into. And it definitely paid in dividends.
Will you buy it right now again? Like, so if you go to Traffic and Conversions next year, would you buy it again? Or do you think it was a good fit? Buying the booth was a good fit at the beginning? Or
we actually bought the booth for this year, but the event's been postponed. So I had a very strategic way to do it. We bought the booth right by the bar this year.
Oh, I see. That's experience talking now.
Right. We can play the music. We can have folks come into the booth to have the drinks. It's going to be a whole deal, but it got postponed to, I believe, December now. So yeah, we'll be there for sure this year.
Gotcha. What are the other strategies that has been working for you to attract clients, right? I think that worked really well at the time. What are you guys doing other than that type of event?
Yeah, great question. So we get a ton of business from referrals, existing clients. We have a great affiliate program, so that's been super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just people who are clients who have friends who they know they need the same thing.
Right.
So our affiliate and our referral processes have been amazing. We have a really crazy effective cold outreach campaign that we use, which is like unheard of. It's all email and it's all automated, but it seems personalized the way that we systematize everything. It's a 3-email drip. Generally speaking, the second email actually gets the most traction, which is interesting. So
Gotcha.
we've tested a lot of different things, and that has been huge for us. So we've actually brought on somebody full-time just to manage that cold outreach process and the prospecting for it.
That's great. Can you give us, without going into too many details, how it operates and who you guys are targeting, etc.?
Yeah, so we're targeting anybody who already kind of does what we do, because we know
Gotcha.
that it's a pain in the butt. They're probably overpaying for it if they're having somebody do it for them, or they're spending too much time doing it if they're doing it themselves.
Makes sense.
So literally, we'll scroll. We have people like combing through social media, just seeing who's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're also targeting like larger companies who are doing great things on social media, because we know that they have the budget and the know-how to implement.
And then they have the mindset, right?
Yeah, so that's been really cool. We use a program called QuickMail, so it actually it uses your Gmail account, so it's not coming from like a mailing list or anything like that. We also implement a lot of Loom, so we do personalized videos, things like that. We used to do like a personal one-on-one video, and now we've kind of figured out a way to not to still do it at scale, but also still make it personalized, if that makes sense. We actually have a course on our cold outreach campaign. So it's something that we sell to people so that they can use it themselves.
Yeah, we'll put the link on the description as well, and I'll buy it as well. But it's interesting to find that balance between doing things at scale and doing things personalized, right? That's something that we have struggled, but that you seems to like have found like some good middle point.
Yeah, well, we got in trouble, to be honest. At the very beginning, when we were baby marketers, we did kind of a similar cold outreach campaign. The content was actually really good. We got amazing feedback on it, but the problem was we didn't go about it the way that that we should have in like a bulk campaign, still trying to make it very personalized and not being like from a list where they have to unsubscribe, things like that. So there's a lot of things you have to really know about, like spam laws and things like that, in order to do something at scale. But also you have to be realistic, because you can't one-on-one email 1 million people at scale. That's just unrealistic. So there's ways to do it the right way still at scale.
I love that. And what are the main objections that you're seeing that come up when you're selling content services like that? So like, what are the main things that people are afraid of, that they have doubts on when they're in the middle of the sales process?
Yeah. So the first thing is, do I have enough content? And, everybody is worried about that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to continuously make stuff. But what is so interesting to me is the second you start asking them about what they've already created, things that they didn't really think about as pieces of content that they could repurpose for social media, their eyes get big and they start to realize, oh my God, because we do all Zoom calls, so we actually get to see their faces 90% of the time. But their eyes get big and like, oh my gosh, I have so much content that I've already created, so I don't have to be consistently every single week making 2 to 3 new videos. Most of it's going to come from my archive, because ultimately, if you created a piece of content that did really well in the past, why aren't you consistently driving traffic to it? Repurpose it, turn it into smaller chunks. One funny thing that I've heard from people is, oh, everybody already read that blog post, or everybody already listened to that podcast episode. And I'm like, everybody? So everybody already did. And it's just a ridiculous, and then they think about it like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, my audience has grown, and then there's other ways you can promote it. There are different channels,
and then there's different platforms, different mediums. So
yeah,
absolutely.
So you definitely have a ton of content that you're sitting on. And once they realize how much they can start utilizing, it's like, oh man, then they get amped, because they're like, wow, I have a ton of social media posts already, like in the bag. Now it's just upkeep,
Right. And which one have you seen is the best content pillar, if you want to call it like that, to repurpose content from? Because I know you guys do from long form articles. You guys also do videos. What's been the one that's driven the best results for your clients?
It really just depends on how the client's utilizing the content. Everybody does different types of content. Everybody promotes differently, and also everybody's audience is different. So the content that's going to work is going to be unique. I mean, the generalization of it is anything that educates or helps somebody in their own life, business process, whatever it is that your service or product is, right? So we have one client who they are in the event industry. They do large scale events, everything from the music to staging to like all of it. They're huge and they're really, really big content creators in that space. So we did a case study with them because they use HubSpot. So they track everything. Any piece of content they put on social, they know how many people clicked through there, landed on the site, opted in, did the whole thing. So they do this show with industry influencers, and it's a gated piece of content, which means you have to give your information in order to even view the episode. So what they did was repurposed 1 2-minute clip from each show every week. And they turned it into like, you know, the little 2-minute clip with 3 different aspect ratios so they can use it on all the different platforms and a couple of image quotes out of it. And just with that 1 2-minute clip and an image quote in the different sizes, in 90 days, tracking just from those, they got 138% more traffic on their site. And they got 300% more opt-ins on their content. Now, those are all new contacts, new people. So, I mean, just those stats alone were staggering to me. And that's on content that is education. You know, the great thing about also podcast episodes like this is that the power of cross promotion is also huge. So you make those smaller assets, and the person who is a guest on your show is going to be sharing those with their audience as well. For sure. So you're getting twice the visibility that you would normally get, and half of it's going to be an audience that's not even, you know, already yours. So you're gaining new eyeballs, which is really cool. So I love this style of content for sure.
Absolutely. So that actually leads me to the next question that I want to ask you, because I think that's one great strategy in terms of like distribution, right? Because content is great, but if nobody sees it, it's like the tree in the forest, right? Like if it fell, but nobody saw it, it didn't make noise. If you put it out, nobody saw it, did you actually put out content? And one strategy that we found effective is to like have mutual distributions and leverage each other audience to reach out to other people. But how do you think are companies and personal brands moving towards getting people to actually consume their content and making sure that they have the distribution part of the equation, right?
You know, that's tricky because there's going to be always, especially larger businesses, there's going to be an ebb and flow between organic media and paid media. It's just, it's the name of the game. Unfortunately, Facebook is pay to play. So if their audience is there, you know, the problem is you go to put out a piece of content on that social media platform and it's like 7% of your audience that is already following you is going to see it. It's probably lower now. It was like 7% last year, and it's dwindled every month. It's crazy. So if you're not putting budget behind it, chances are there's not a whole lot of people that are going to see it in the first place. Now, if you're on like LinkedIn, it's a totally different monster. You can get tons of eyeballs on your content organically as long as you're engaging with other people on the platform. It just really depends on where they're living and what the strategy is. Now, as far as like long form content goes, that goes a long way, especially if you've got SEO on your side and things like that. Content is the less expensive and more effective way to get leads and business than like anything else, any other kind of content. So it can certainly be a massive player, especially like you and I are talking about, where you have other people helping in the distribution to share your content. Also, being a guest blogger, like doing anything you can with other businesses that are similar to your industry and helping each other out in content, that goes a really long way too. We did one blog on this, I forgot, what was the site? It's a podcasting blog. We did one post and we get business and it was when we were podcast memes. Right. And so our old website directs you to now the new website. This was a year and a half ago. We still get clients from that one blog post we wrote a year and a half ago for another publication. So definitely guesting and giving your knowledge on other people's platforms is going to be a huge way to get distribution.
And you never know which one, right? Because you might do 4 guest blog posts that like turn 0 leads, but you might do one that, like you said, 6 months later, a year later, still brings in results. And in terms of paid ads, we've actually seen like a lot of our clients think that the more content, the better. And it's true to a point, right? Because there's a point, I think, that more content is not the solution, but it's better to like put the fuel on paid ads and do less content, but make sure that you get the paid ads distribution right. And like you said, not all platforms are the right play for this, but there are certain platforms that I think it's worth putting $100, $200 on paid ads and doing one less article per month, right?
Right. Absolutely. And right now, especially with what's going on, like ads are pennies on the dollar. It's crazy. Like we have just an awareness campaign that we're running where it's less than a penny per
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And it's just brand awareness for us. Like, I know that the event we retarget and do all that fun stuff, but like just the brand awareness piece is crazy town for how many eyeballs we're getting.
Yeah, for sure. And we've seen, we're not doing it ourselves, but we've seen other companies running ads to like middle of the funnel content assets, such as like case studies and use cases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And with no call to action, nothing else, and getting great results from that. Because like you said, right, like just get the awareness out, and if it's a problem for them, they'll come to you.
Exactly.
And it's also interesting how you mentioned that you see content as the best way to get leads. And that's something that I also want to ask you on. How do you see the relationship between content and sales and the inbound versus outbound, right? Like a lot of companies have this friction inside them between the two departments. So how do you think we should manage that fight or that relationship?
Yeah, what's tough about content marketing is it's difficult to track if you're not really, really savvy or paying for a lot of software to track it. You know what I mean? So you can have the blog post and not know if anybody really, like, you can see that you have hits on that page, but you don't know if the business came from that, right? So I think a lot of it, there's a lot of different ways to track, making sure that you have like opt-in forms and lead magnets on your site. That's like an obvious way to know for sure if content's really helping. But ultimately, like, it's the more you educate in general about whatever it is that your audience needs to hear, whether it's about what you provide or what comes before what you provide or after what you provide. Like, we do a lot of content about what to do with your repurposed assets after you have them. We do a lot of content about how to create the content in the first place. So we're supporting you on a lot of different areas. And then we have content that just is supporting them in general. We know what they are interested in, right? The more you educate, and like you said, if it's like a one sheet download, the more you are going to be the obvious solution for them when they need a resolution to that problem that you solve. So it's one of those things where it's like education is key in making sure that you're around. You become trusted very quickly if you're helping them in something in their life or business. And it will come around tenfold. And it's interesting because like the sales teams always get the glory because they're the, like, yeah, they may be doing cold outreach or generating leads themselves, but you don't know how much content that person who made the purchase consumed before they got on the sales call. It's like they're the uncelebrated warriors are the content marketers in the business.
I've always seen that they amplify each other, right? Because if you do outreach, but they've consumed your content before and they already know you, the chances of them responding are much higher.
Absolutely.
And vice versa, right? Like if you're doing outreach and then they see the content as well, like I think they work together and it's less than a fight than a positive relationship as long as people are and the departments work together. But one thing that you mentioned that's really interesting is the attribution part, right? How to measure a content marketing success strategy. And personally, I've found that there's a lot of things in content that cannot be measured, right? Like you cannot measure a conversation after like somebody read a blog post. So how do you think, or how do you talk to businesses saying, I want to measure the ROI of my content, but while there's things that you cannot just find the numbers, right?
Yeah. That's tough because there's so many different stages in it. Like, and one of the reasons we were so excited to do that case study with Endless Events was because they do track everything. They use HubSpot. They know where their entire client journey from the second that they get touched the first time and everything they do following, because I knew that was going to be a struggle. Like, how do you track that their one repurposed asset is doing something as far as sales go? So for that, it was great because we were able to track it. They have the systems in place because they really understand the power of content. They are content powerhouses in their field. So they made it a point to spend the money to be able to track and see what it's doing for them. And they see that it's doing so well that they put out more content consistently, like at scale. I think he's got like 4 podcasts now. But what's interesting is that like you will see there's just so many different touch points that you have to hit somebody before they're going to sell.
For sure.
And it's 10 minimum is what the study is. And one really cool thing is you're saying like it doesn't matter what side it is on, like sales touch first and then content or content then sales. The email I was telling you about, that's the second one, is a download of that case study I was telling you about, where it literally shows you implementation on exactly how they post it on their social channels. And that's the one that we get the most responses on. The first touch doesn't really give them a lot of educational information. It's just like, hey, how's it going? We love your content, this and that. The second email is where we start to give them content that actually helps them. And true to form, that's the one we get the most responses on.
Absolutely. And a couple more questions before we wrap this up. first I wanted to ask you about LinkedIn, right? I think the first time I got introduced to your brand was through a client of mine who mentioned you, and then we got connected on a LinkedIn post, right? So
Yeah.
How have you seen the social media landscape, especially when it comes to B2B? And like, what are the things that agency owners, business owners, CEOs should be doing on LinkedIn to create demand and bring in inbound opportunities?
It's a great question. So LinkedIn is amazing right now. The reach is crazy. The reach is like Facebook before they realized that they could charge people for all of the eyeballs, right? So, and I can guarantee you it's not going to stay that way for very long. So
and
while
I think
you
the
can
audience
leverage
is better.
it.
Like,
absolutely.
The quality of audience is something that we don't often talk about, but like across all social media platforms, like I'm on Instagram now, and the audience there, like 5 comments on LinkedIn versus 5 comments on Instagram are not worth the same.
Oh, not at all. No. And I mean, it's different. For us, we're B2B. So that's why LinkedIn is the platform for sure. If you're e-commerce, Instagram's a great spot to be. It just depends on what you're selling.
Right.
But as far as like how, especially agency owners should be engaging on LinkedIn, is help as many people as you can. And that can be in many different forms. It can be in videos that you're putting on that speak to whatever problem it is that you're solving. I do a lot of video on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. It's all formatted properly, obviously.
I love your videos, by the way.
The whole deal. Thank you.
They're so funny. I'm serious.
Be yourself.
and educational, but actually they're really funny.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, but it's just educating and being in your own voice and being a real human being. Everybody wants to be so polished and perfect. And it's like, my dog shows up in my videos. Like, I'm still educating, but it's like, we're all people.
But it's true, right? And I think like at the end of the day, the power of personal branding is that we are more relatable, right? And we can engage one-on-one as a human being versus being a faceless logo as a company. So I absolutely love like being more vulnerable, being more personal, just being in your voice, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. And one big key, I know LinkedIn's algorithm really favors when you are communicating with other people on other posts than your own as well. Mm-hmm. So it's another great thing to do if you're part of groups or if you are following hashtags where you have some knowledge or expertise, to look at posts, look at comments on posts and engage and offer solutions and give ideas and thoughts. And the more you engage with other people's posts, the more LinkedIn will reward you with more eyeballs on your own. So those are really just the two main things. One thing that I cannot understand why people like don't do this is when you link with somebody and they accept your link, send them a message. Just people don't even send anything. They'll try to link with me. I'll accept the link, and then that's it.
And then silence.
Silence. I have one email, and don't get me wrong, it is a copy and paste email, but it's all info, like it's stats on like things that you can do in your social media. That will help make it better. I literally offer value straight out of the gates, but every single person I link with gets that email, and that email gets the message every single time. And it's like, whether they respond or not, it doesn't matter to me. I know that I've given them some sort of value from linking with me in the first place.
I'm stealing that from you, by the way.
Do it, please do. I mean, when I had my video production company like 7 years ago, when I first started that, all my business came from LinkedIn, and it was literally from just linking with people and then sending them stats and information on video marketing. And it was incredible the amount of responses that I got from that turned into real business.
I know that for us, it's been the main inbound opportunities, and it's been honestly like business changing to have that platform. And then the last question that I want to ask you, this is a bit of a different topic, not so much as content, but in terms of like running the business. You have built a really interesting framework, I think overseas, but if I'm wrong, let me know. And it's growing really quickly. So what have been the challenges of like building a team like that you're not close to physically, like expanding that team quickly? What are the things that you've had difficulties with, and how have you overcome them?
Great question. So I think that one of the things that we struggled with a little bit was knowing what the limitations of that team was going to be and preparing ourselves to be able to adjust them. So full disclosure, I had help in how to structure this at the beginning because I'm friends with Russ Perry, who owns Design Pickle. Yeah. I have been to the Philippines with his team. I have met a whole bunch of them before I started this and kind of got some guidance on the best way to build a team, especially in the Philippines, and how to like structure your business from that. So I had a head start because I was like, why recreate the wheel, right? If he's already done it, he's willing to offer me insight. That's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we had our own challenges because our business, our offering is unique in the sense that like we have transcriptions that we need to do. Like we had content curation, and those were two things that we tried to implement in the Philippines, but it just wasn't working because English wasn't their first language.
Right.
There's just a barrier in communication, which was fine. It was just learning that was a limitation and knowing what we needed to bring stateside. As far as managing a team overseas, honestly, it's been pretty amazing. Like we are 100% transparent with our clients. Listen, they start at 5 p.m. our time because that's 8 a.m. their time, and they work full time in the Philippines. Like we love our team. They work 8 to 5, just like you want to work. And everybody just accepts it. It's cool. I think there's a lot of people and businesses who try to hide the fact that they have a team somewhere other than the United States or wherever they're from. And I think that does you a disservice because then your clients are expecting something different.
Right.
Also, we had to learn how to put leadership in place there so that we weren't up all night freaking out on whether things were getting done or not. And at the beginning, there was a lot of Sarah, who is my director of ops, and I having sleepless nights or waking up in cold sweats, wondering if clients got their tickets. Yeah. And that was at the very beginning. And then it took time to find the right leaders and to put them into place. And once we did that and figured out the team structure and the reporting structure, it's like cake now. So the scalability is incredible because we've implemented that really early, like how people onboard. Like we have people go through our paid training before we even decide to hire them or not. So we pay them to go through training. Gotcha. And then they're on the bench ready to rock and roll. They're already logged into all of our systems. They have accounts. They know exactly how to work. The second we have the clients to support that, they start on a training team where we do have a team lead who just trains people, and that's it. And then they move on to different teams as they go. So we've created structure to allow us to grow rapidly from the beginning because I knew that I didn't want that to be the bottleneck.
Right. How big is the team more or less nowadays?
We're at 22 in the Philippines and we have 4 in the US.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, as a fellow business owner, like congrats, because I know how hard that must have been to build that team over there and manage it. It's hard enough with like Americans and then not Americans, but like people that you're next to and you can tell them.
Right. Yeah.
But having it somewhere else with like a culture difference, it must have been super rough. But
it was, one of the biggest components I feel like to make that successful is the fact that we lean heavily into culture and well-being. Like we want to make sure that everybody feels supported and that we care about all of them. And so there's an open door policy. There's obviously a chain of command, but everybody really cares about everybody because we hire on culture fit first. I don't want to hire the world's greatest graphic designer because with that comes ego usually. That's not the guy I want. I want somebody who has an amazing personality, is excited to be a part of a team, like gets the value of well-being in a business that actually cares about that. And those are the best fits for us. We can train on most of the stuff that we do with minimal background in graphics, but that's number one for hiring, is making sure you're hiring as a culture fit and not just talent.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think it was an amazing episode. I learned a lot and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Where can people reach out to you? We will also put the links, but if you can let us know, obviously LinkedIn.
Yep, LinkedIn's a great spot.
Yeah.
For me, most of my personal content is on LinkedIn. You want to see my puppies, you're going to go on Instagram and Facebook. There's lots of dog photos there. But yeah, it's one of those. I was just like, what? It's me. It is what it is. So I'm Shaina Weisinger on all the platforms. Repurpose House on all the platforms is Repurpose House Co. But we shared lots and lots of info on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them. Lots of case studies, cool blog articles, things like that too. So that's a good spot. And then repurposehouse.com if you want to check out all of our, the podcast and the blogs and the videos and all that fun stuff.
Everything. Awesome. Thank you so much. If you're listening, feel free to subscribe and share, and we will see you next time. Thank you.